All right, everybody. Welcome to our Tuesday night team call. Super excited tonight because we have a special guest joining us tonight. As advertised, that's Darin, who is the co-creator of Shakeology and the Ultimate Reset, and one of the most sort of the world's most interesting man. The Dos Equis commercials have nothing on Darin when it comes to living in a really interesting life and sort of really having a lot of passion for what you do. And so I have invited Darin on the call tonight. I, ahead of time, got some questions for him to do a little Q&A as we kind of round out the end of this call. I've got a few questions. There were a few that were posted. I'll go ahead and just kind of ask those. But for those of you who are on the call tonight, if you want to type in the chat box, if you have a question or something comes up that you want some clarity on, just type it in the chat box. And after we kind of get going here, we'll see if we can answer a few questions without keeping Darin too long, or me, because I have to go pick up my son from his after-school activities. So let's kick it off. So Darin, first of all, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh man, you're so welcome. I'm excited to step out further in the Beachbody community. Coming out from the jungles and the trips and things like that to get out more info and to step out in the jungle of people.
Absolutely. Very cool. Well, I guess let's just kind of start. I think everybody who is going to be watching this call really knows a little bit about you and kind of what you do. You know, your role as what we always call the ingredient hunter, the guy who's out in the bush looking for the latest and greatest, and really. I think one of the cool things that you get to do, at least from my perception, is work with the local people, working with the farmers, and spending time with those people, getting to know them one-on-one. But talk to us a little bit about, just your story and how you came to be a part of Beachbody.
Oh yeah. Well, it's interesting because I coming out of getting my education. Exercise, phys, and nutrition, and fresh off the boat of college, and starting to really understand food and nutrition. I kept, always looking at packages and reading labels, and always kind of wondering, why did they do that? And then, long story shorter. I lost my father to alcohol, and I was kind of like, I got a little money from him. I said, what do I really want to do with this legacy? What do I want to do with the inspiration he gave me, the inspiration that I'm kind of percolating inside with what I'm seeing and not seeing? And so I decided to start my own company, and I had all these formulas in my head. I'd been playing with foods. I had started to travel. I started to get kind of, as I like to say, kind of behind the veil of nutrition products and where they come from, and meeting the farmers. My father actually was a professor at the University of Minnesota in the ag business, where he taught farmers about the economy of their business. And it's funny because I sat in on his classes as a little kid, and it only dawned on me 5 years ago that, that might have something to do with what I'm doing now. And so, I was full on just going to create my own company, and I was supplying some, superfood companies and some other guys with some of the sourcing and ingredients that I found, but I was just going to do it myself. And then kind of in that 11th hour where I had everything ready to go, serendipity stepped in, and I had hired the manager of a local vitamin barn, Miguel, who's this indigenous, brilliant guy who continues to work for me today. And he was still at the job, and this wonderful little being came up to him with all these supplements. Isabel. Yeah. And at the time, him and Isabel got in this conversation about, hey, what are you up to? You clearly know what you're doing and what what you're talking about. And she said, well, my boyfriend, because they weren't married at the time, is, has got this company, but we want to kind of amp up the nutrition, and we're thinking about doing some formulas, and we kind of need somebody to do that for us. And Miguel's like, wow, you really need to talk to Darin. And he called me, and we set up a meeting, and it was like kindred spirits. And then
really interesting.
there it was, meeting Isabel was the easiest conversation that I've had, and very simple. And so then an hour went by, and she said, well, meet Carl. And next thing I know, I'm sitting with Carl, and by his pool, and he said, hey, Isabel gave me a lot of good things about you, and I want to affect the lives of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. And that's what I'm about. And it was really Carl's passion and his commitment that got me. And because I'm committed to all those things myself. And so when when you hear something from someone and you really believe it, I never intended to, work for a company. I had been disappointed by too many companies. And I just didn't think that they had the integrity that I knew I had. So anyway, it was kind of there, a handshake and some shared passion, and off to the races we went. And the birth of Shakeology was then created, and that was in 2006. And it took me a while to formulate that monster. And and then 2008 it got launched. So and I got to tell you, I don't think that I would be around today if it weren't for the integrity of Carl, and certainly Isabel, continuing to show up in that integrity every day. So I have a lot of gratitude for those two, and for the continued integrity of Beachbody as it grows into an amazing, growing large company.
Yeah, for sure. I love the stories. There's kind of two things that I guess for people listening to take away from just how this all came about. The first one is really pretty simple and straightforward. It's that, you never know who you're going to meet and who those people know. And, our business is about meeting new people, and I meet as many new people as possible. Very few of them end up becoming customers or becoming coaches, but a lot of them end up being great contacts who say, wow, you should really meet this guy, or you should really meet that guy, or, this guy over here at the school needs some help, or there's a Boy Scout troop and they need some help with physical fitness. And I meet all these people, and I think sometimes we get in our head too much when we start to think about, well, how does this relationship become a coach? Don't worry about those things. Make friends with people, be cool, be relatable. And I think that's the first thing. And the second one is what talking about Carl. I had a really unique experience with this company as well, because my wife was one of the founders, and we got to go on the first Beachbody trip where they took us to Maui. And because it was such a small group of people, I actually got to spend a lot of time talking with Carl and John. And at the time I was practicing law, and I thought what my wife was doing was fantastic, but I wasn't going to do it. And the more I talked to those guys, the more that integrity and their commitment to what they were doing, and, their real commitment to not screwing it up and doing it the right way. And, we don't need to be the biggest company. We just need to be the best company. And slowly but surely that really kind of, won me over to be a part of that. And a lot of times people will ask me questions like, well, how do you know all the stuff on the ingredient list is really in the bag? And my response is because I know the people, like I know them personally, and they're just good people who are trying to do, some really good stuff. So I really just appreciate the background story.
Yeah, if that wasn't in the bag, you wouldn't be having this conversation with me. It's uh, there's so many miles that my ass has been suffering from that has gotten to some pretty incredible places on this planet, and and to be able to take something that is powerful as some of these superfoods, and to be able to process it in an integrity way, with which is utilizing everything that's in it, and to get it into a bag, to make it convenient for someone to rip it open and to take it and have it actually taste good, which was a whole nother mountain to climb because of everything in it, is a remarkable feat. And there's hundreds of people now, in the quality assurance teams, to operations, to research and development, that are there to continue to make sure that everything that we say it is, everything that's in it, is exactly what's in it. And that is a story that we haven't gotten much into. And there is no other. I know where most ingredients come from. If you tell me a product of significance, I pretty much can tell you. If it's a whole food, I can pretty much tell you where it's from, or who's doing it, or what farmers it is, and the level at which Beachbody goes to show up with our own teams in those countries of origin, and working with those people, and making sure the manufacturing facility in those countries and the manufacturing facility here that are doing everything that they're supposed to be doing, is unbelievable what Beachbody is doing. And that is the story that proves the quality, because there's nothing that gets by our teams. It's just no one. The commitment that you and I have shared with Carl has filtered down throughout everyone. And if they don't have that integrity, if they don't have that kind of credo, it's just not going to work. It's just not it's not the right company. It's not the company that's going to go, hey, you can get this Camu for $1 a kilo cheaper. But there's some fillers and there's some things in there, and it's just not going to happen. Not with Shakeology, and not with this company.
Yeah, that's really awesome, and we always appreciate the commitment. And it's funny. One of the questions we always get about Shakeology is the cost, right? And it does. I think from in the abstract can seem expensive, but I think once people really learn more about it, and it's one of the reasons I'm really glad you're on the call, is to get to see one of the faces and get to hear from these people who have formulated this, that there's a ton of value in there. And maybe just take a second and kind of talk about that. We've seen the little price comparison thing with Tony, which I think is awesome, but just the value behind Shakeology, to source all these ingredients on your own, it's seemingly impossible.
Yeah. It is, and that's the, it's funny. I call it fortunate or unfortunate. I've never, being a poor college kid or anything along the way, once I realized the power of nutrition, I personally have never skimped on my nutrition. I always would do whatever it took to get. Because it's like, at what point is it worth it to me to put something not good for my body in? This is my body. If you undercut your health, you're done. Like, if you want to have an extraordinary life and you have to hobble around and can't really get up and don't have the energy and all that stuff, well, guess what? That's it. That's the level at which you can live your life. And for me, and Shakeology, there's no way that we're going to skimp on that, because it's about living an extraordinary life. So, again, every ingredient is its own world of integrity that it takes to get those products, or to get that ingredient into that bag. And, if you take something like, let's break it down into giving a window, right? So let's look at, since I brought it up, let's look at camu camu. Camu camu comes from the jungles of the Amazon, essentially, right? It's a tree that virtually gets flooded by the Amazon River. The camu camu berry, or essentially cherry looking, gets overtaken by water and has to develop this very, very high vitamin C content in order to survive the attack that it gets from its environment. That's where that's coming from, right? So to get that out of the Amazon and to process it in a way that you don't kill off these high nutrient value, nutrient dense phytonutrients, this high vitamin C, is very careful. So you have to wash it and clean it and dry it under 115, 120 degrees, so that you don't burn those, essentially, those ingredients out. So that's one ingredient. So can you imagine the labor, the protocol, the quality assurance structure, the manufacturing, pulverizing, drying structure, the shipping of that, the blending, the alchemy of that with the other ingredients? That's one ingredient. Now keep in mind that you can very easily, just like that video, you can go to a store and buy camu camu, but I guarantee you there is no organization looking out for what that camu camu is in that product. FDA doesn't have it. They don't have the people to do that. There's no organization. The nutrition world is trusting that if you are selling that, it's in it. They're not going to do anything unless something happens. Keep in mind that I could put a dusting of an ingredient in there, call it camu camu, fill it with a bunch of other stuff that's really cheap, and sell my product. And as a customer, you wouldn't know anything else. What we do is we absolutely test every lot, every batch for its particular biochemical signature that we've already identified with a pure, again, as this example, camu camu, and we know exactly what it is. And you can do this through spectrometer. You can do this through some interesting technology where you can see it's essentially taking a fingerprint, right? So if I'm checking for Darin, then this Darin better show up when I test it, right? So that's what's happening. That's the level at which we go. Now, has it happened in the industry where you order something from, let's say, a foreign country and it shows up? If you don't test it, it might not be what you wanted. It happens all the time. It's like supplement world is like Wild West. If you don't put the time, energy, resources, quality assurance teams, research and development teams, and operation teams in place, you are playing Russian roulette and you have no idea what you're getting. On top of it, you don't know what you're getting just from contaminations. It could be E. coli, fecal matter, like bugs, whatever. So I'm just saying that, Dave, because I don't get a lot of opportunity to kind of open up that little, almost a microscope of that's one ingredient, but that's the protocol, some of which the protocols we go into on every single ingredient to, again, the start of this conversation was to then have what we say is in that bag. And unfortunately, there's a lot of companies out there that just don't care that much. Or from my point of view, Dave and everyone, they have not done the work of going past the manufacturer. You could call up a manufacturer because they have all the brokers and they have all the things and they can find all these ingredients, but you have no idea, actually. You have no idea. You have no relationship with a farmer. You have no idea what kind of soil it was grown in. You have no idea of this whole world. And most companies, and some very big companies, that's how they operate. So our level at which we're going into and sourcing with and working with the farmers and working on sustainable growing is what makes the bargain of $130 or whatever the price is, because you literally, it is something that me personally, I will never skimp on. And if I'm creating a formula that is going into millions of bodies, there is no way that we're not going to take every step to know that that ingredient is going to do the magic and the healing and the whatever else it needs to do its job. So we just can't not do that. So anyway, I go back to the thing. If we weren't doing all that, I would have been on to my next adventure already.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure. Well, we're glad to have you. And I want to, we've got some questions and stuff, but before we get into that, I want to talk to you a little bit. And one of the things you just kind of talked about is, why don't you skimp on your nutrition? And then one of the reasons, right, is so you can live this really optimal, fantastic life, feel good. The way I always put it is do the things I want to do when I want to do them without limitations. And I've got a lot of friends. I'm going to be 43 in a couple of weeks. I got a lot of friends who have all kinds of issues, and even if they had the time, couldn't do the things that they want to do when they want to do them. And part of that, I think, is your new adventure into super life. And so I want you to take some time, talk about that, talk about your book, and then also this hashtag, Love How You Live. Oh yeah.
So yeah, this amazing little thing that now shows up in your hand that I spent 2 years on, and essentially a lifetime. Super Life. I love this title because we kind of were figuring out what the title would be. The 5 forces that will make you healthy, fit, and eternally awesome. And Dave, you kind of said it. The theos, the idea, the thing that's beyond me is when I was writing this book, they basically said, what do you want to write about? And the obvious thing was superfoods. And I was like, I don't want to write about superfoods, not yet. I want to write about the foundation, because if your foundation of health is there, then every superfood you take in is going to be exponentially used by the body and utilized by the body, right? So if you're unhealthy and your digestion, your endocrine system, or adrenals are all off, or your acids are off, or your pH is off, it's really difficult to utilize almost anything. So this book was created so that people could understand easily that if you undermine any of these life forces, as I talk about, if you undermine any system of health, you undermine it all. And it sends off a trajectory throughout the body that undercuts everything. We're so fascinated and interested in a big fix, right? We all want the big fix. We even we want to take Shakeology and want all our problems to go away, when in fact it's a catalyst. It's a boost. It's a healing. I probably shouldn't say that because Beachbody legal team, but off the record, for me, it's a healing potential for the body to then heal, reduce stress, get rid of some weight, to facilitate feeling better. And then I feel better. I have more energy. Then what? Oh, wow, maybe I should not eat this burger. I should eat a salad. Maybe I should, oh, wow, I'm feeling better. I don't even want that anymore. And the taste buds start changing and all of these things. So the book is really set up to demystify all of these things, from these big fix syndromes to how water alkalinization, oxygenation, detoxification, how all of these systems work together. And it's not heavy in science, right? It's rooted in science, but it's very conversational. In a lot of ways, Dave, I almost, it's getting back to common sense. And it's getting back to really how we've let go of our instincts of how to eat and take care of ourselves, and hopefully re-inspiring that, oh, if our cells are unhealthy, we're unhealthy. If I'm dehydrated, it affects every system of the body, every system of the body. And so anyway, there's many different parts of that. And then superlife.com and Superlife, the bigger picture, it's everything the book has, but also the lifestyle aspect of it. Hey, we're in a house, and the house is an extension of us. And are we being exposed with PCBs, phthalates from plastics? What kind of makeup are we putting on? What kind of deodorant are we putting on? All of these things create this either a healthy soup or a toxic soup that we live in. And every single thing is either creating the body that we want, or destroying the body we want. And unfortunately, it happens subtly over time, right? Because health is not created by a magic pill. It's not created by a magic ingredient. It's created by several ingredients, several steps, and several choices. You know, you did the ultimate reset. And what is it? It's a 21-day, eat a lot of healthy foods, eliminate the things that aren't so great, increase the water. And what happens over a period of time? It's not rocket science. The body is designed to thrive. So if we set it up to thrive, then we can have a super life. I mean, that's really what it's about. I am the same position as you, Dave. I want to surf when I want to. I want to run out. I want to lift heavy things. I want to play. I don't want to actually think about my body. I don't want to be obsessed about my body. I want to just, okay, I've spent a lifetime learning about it. I've a lifetime finding the foods that ignite my body. Okay, cool. Let me do that, so then I can live the greatest life ever. So that's really what it is. And the book harnesses a lot of nutritional principles that kind of demystify stuff. And my hope is that it yanks people out of this fad yo-yo big fix kind of scenario, and just go, listen, it's very simple but very powerful if you follow these simple yet powerful forces that the body kind of operates in.
Yeah, I love the simplicity of it. In particular, you know, there's one of my favorite quotes from an author named John Acuff, and the quote is that people are always looking for the complicated answers to problems, because if the answer is simple, that probably means they have to change. And we'd much rather take a pill or, you know, go to the doctor or whatever, rather than just implementing these really simple things. And I do want to transition and talk about the reset a bit, because I think it fits really well with what you're talking about here. I know I've done the reset 3 times. The last time was just in November. Monica just finished it about 2 weeks ago, I think. About a week and a half ago. And every time that we go through and do that program, there's new stuff that comes up for us. We have a new experience, but we always come out of it on the back end, feeling amazing, but also, you know, equipped with some new, you know, tools in the toolbox, whether it's alkalinized, which is something I just continued taking after the reset. And every time I start the reset, I go, man, why have I not been taking alkalinized? You know, and it's little things that pick you up. And I think the reset does a really great job of you know, conditioning us in that way. So maybe talk a little bit about that, and about kind of the, not necessarily all the inside outside structures of the reset, but these bigger picture things that we're trying to accomplish with something like doing an ultimate reset?
It's funny because it's kind of like the ultimate reset is so many principles that I dive deep in my book.
Yeah.
So even Shakeology and the ultimate reset, every reason of why I formulated those products are what I threw in that book. And the ultimate reset, my hope for the ultimate reset is that it's not this 21 day, that it becomes someone's life. Because we're very clear, we are not out to, we could have made a cleanse that has less to do about food and more to do about getting something to happen. Mm-hmm. Shove some purgatives in and have some violent bathroom experiences and things like that. But this is very balanced in its approach. And, like you said, I mean, it's these habits that are ingrained in the ultimate reset that just in 21 days, they create some massive effect. And that is the testament of the body, right? So when you eliminate, there's two things that go on in the reset. One is you're eliminating the things that are doing you harm, right? So get rid of that. We have that kind of pantry sweep that we encourage people to do. Just get that stuff out of your trajectory. Yeah. And then add in all of these other foods. So it's getting rid of the crap and then increasing the nutrient dense food and water and all of those things. And that alone, and then set you on that course and eat healthy and everything. And the body starts doing its deal. I mean, and the clinical trial that we did, and weight falls off and testosterone for men increase. I mean, go figure, Dave. You decrease all of these kind of false masculine things like eat your red meat and all that stuff, and you eliminate it, and all of a sudden your testosterone balances and you have these hormone shifts and weight falls off. It's funny. I was just racing here because I was hanging out with Saggy, Mr. Beast. He just came to town, and we're starting to do some things together, and we both, he's a really amazing guy, actually, the more I get to know him. And we're both like, if people come to you with weight loss, doesn't change our protocols. Our protocols are health first. Health first, the body gets rid of it. If your body's healthy, it doesn't want to stay sluggish and, having extra weight and depressed and everything else. So if you lead with health first, and that's ultimately the ultimate reset, it's leading with health first, and all of the goals that people want happen. They naturally happen because we're leading with that first. And that's the wonderful thing about the ultimate reset. I think the biggest Achilles heel of the reset is people don't want to spend 21 days when in fact it's such a small amount of time for the benefits that you actually get, that it's actually extraordinary. But we're going against, I think, this culture that just wants, I want what I want, and I want it now, and I want my health, but I don't want to acknowledge the unhealthy that I've been doing for the last 15 years. And that's the thing that I think is so powerful, and it's habitual changing patterns of the ultimate reset. We got the 3-day refresh is great. It can kind of steer you and get you back onto some habit forming things and can kind of get you going again. But I think for me personally, I would say the goal for both the 3-day refresh and the ultimate reset is just to stay on those healthy plans so you're actually never off.
Yeah, for sure. I know after, the hardest thing for me is always trying to back off on the workouts that last week, because I tend to have so much crazy energy that I want to get going, right? And so I think that, and I know after I finished, it's the same thing. As we're kind of funny little aside. So I finished the day before Thanksgiving. Since then, I've been up in the mountains skiing a lot and traveling around. I haven't exercised much other than skiing, which I guess is a pretty good exercise, and hiking and doing all that stuff. But I literally have not gained a pound since I finished the reset. I'm just exactly the same weight I was then. And the demands that I've put on myself this winter have been heavier than I ever have. I mean, we hiked a pretty healthy hike at almost 13,000 feet. And, it wasn't real pretty, but I got through it. And I just can't help but think that that's a big piece of that. And the ability to do that is just really taking care of my body and putting my body in this, position to succeed and position to kind of, okay, I'm going to push you hard, but, you're going to be ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Very cool. Let's get to a couple of questions if we could. The first one I want to talk about is diabetics, really. There have been a lot of, it's an ongoing thing where we get a lot of questions about diabetics. Shakeology is usually the main focus. If you want to touch on the reset, I'd appreciate that as well. And how that might help people with diabetes. I know I run across a lot of people with diabetes, mostly type 2, but there are some type 1 people as well. And, I think sometimes people just take a look at that carb and sugar count on the back of the nutrition facts, and that's kind of where they go. So maybe talk a little bit about that and draw some distinctions there and help us understand that issue.
Yeah. So I guess the question would be then, is it safe to drink Shakeology on, while you're diabetic? Well, our first off, our diabetic readings for blood sugar are extremely, extremely low. We have it tested all the time, and that influence on blood sugar is well below, anything that we've seen in terms of a shake like that. So the other important feature, and I think I put it up on, and if not, I'll try to find it. And Beachbody grabbed it and put it. There's a study that I recently read and shared in that, with sugars, when you have Shakeology is greater than the sum of its parts, right? It's greater than its carb. It's greater than its sugar. It's got its fiber. It's got its fats. It's got its phytochemistry. It's all these things. All of that being said, slows down the rate of your body's absorption of sugar. So the alchemy of Shakeology, which is why we have it tested as the full Shakeology, is extremely low on that diabetic spike and shows very little significance on insulin reaction when taking it, which is extremely important for diabetics, obviously. So, I would probably argue all of the other things that diabetics are doing or not doing, because Shakeology is definitely one you don't have to worry about in terms of spiking that blood sugar and taxing that. So anyway, type 2, yeah, I mean, it's very much in the pocket but at the same time, the challenge with having a discussion about Shakeology as a problem with diabetics really should be talked about from the sense of everything else that person is doing. So yes, can we look at Shakeology and there's no issues, but you don't know what someone's doing in and out of the drinking of Shakeology, or where their adrenals are, where their insulin is, and how much of that is influenced, which is ultimately why, something like the Ultimate Reset really does help to restructure and curb and allow for some healing around some of that stuff. So, a lot of the problems with type 2 diabetes, from my experience, can be absolutely reversed, but it's really just staying away from those refined carbs and sugars and things like that. And something like the Ultimate Reset, I could only imagine is one of there's many diets out there that can really help, but it definitely Ultimate Reset is way up there in terms of one of the I hate to use this word, diets that can help rebalance someone in with type 2 diabetes. And it's something that can absolutely be, I never say that you can't restore or repair systems. I mean, type 1 obviously is a little different, but type 2 for sure. It's it's that one of those things where it's chronic things added up over time create chronic problems. So you have to reverse engineer that and eliminate and look at all the other things that you're doing and not doing.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I had it's been about 16, 18 months ago, I started working with this police officer from Mississippi, and we started having this conversation. He's pre-diabetic, and we started going through his diet. I actually asked him to track his diet. And one of the things I found was that he was drinking like 16 ounces of orange juice at lunch, and we basically just said, hey, instead of that orange juice you're drinking, let's try Shakeology instead. And I can guarantee you it's going to fill you up a lot more. But it also is the way your blood is absorbing these sugars. And something like an orange juice doesn't really have anything to disrupt that uptake of sugars. Whereas with Shakeology, you have a more complex formula that it does have fiber and it does have these things that, it's got sugars in it, but so does broccoli.
Yeah.
We can't just look at it and say, well, it has this many carbs, therefore it's good and or bad, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the complexity of the Shakeology formula too. And per ounce, you don't have the uninhibited blast of sugar that you would with any kind of fruit juice. It really, there is no place really for fruit juice in our diet. And from my point of view, no one should drink any straight up fruit juice. If you're gonna have apple juice, just blend the whole apple, or eat the apple. But it's a lot of these things, Dave, that people have gotten used to in our culture, that you have to, which is again why I wrote this book, kind of like a gentle tap across the face, like, come on. This is just because it's in our culture does not mean that it's healthy for us. Right. And we need to start asking questions again. And as many questions as we get on Shakeology, which we can absolutely back up, there's very few questions that are asked of things that people think are okay. And most things in packages and bottles and cans on our shelves are very questionable. I'm kind of like, go to your grocery store, avoid all the aisles, and go around the outside and get your vegetables and go home. For the most part, that's pretty much it. So the scrutiny that we should take, I love, bring on the questions of Shakeology, because there's nothing for us to hide behind. But I would also say to people, question everything that you're putting in your mouth, which is ultimately also, I'll get back to your hashtag Love How You Live challenge. Was a little glimpse into some habit forming things up until the day of the book launch, which is on February 10th. So Love How You Live challenge, you just sign up and you retweet and you have a chance to win a book. So anyone can do that, social media, whatever. But all of that, Dave, is to wake up those kind of dulled down instincts that we have, and kind of re-inspire the habits that can really over time change our lives. And that's what I'm about. And as much as I want a quick fix on the things in my life, Uh, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work, right? And every coach knows that. You know that. Building a business, building anything, comes from one step at a time, and so that's what it's about. And so anyway, everyone can join that Love How You Live challenge and get my book. And I guarantee if your callers read that book and don't learn one thing, I'll personally give the money back and you can keep the book.
There you go. There you go. You heard it right there. Before we kind of move on and wrap up, I want to just clarify something you were talking about earlier when we were talking about type 1 and type 2 diabetes. And I think what you were saying was essentially type 2 is a fixable system, meaning it is in most cases reversible. Type 1 is obviously a different thing, but Shakeology for type 1 or type 2, it's not really any different analysis, or is it? As far as whether it's good for them or not.
Right, exactly. So it's still it's not going to spike it's not going to spike any more on type 1 than it would on type 2. They're still going to do what it does, but it's still as low and is diabetically safe food, tested, and glycemic index is extremely low. I forget what the latest reading is, but it's way below and is considered a low glycemic essentially food, right? So yeah, it doesn't matter. But back to your question, type 2 diabetes is a created disorder of the adrenals, so you can uncreate that, and that's new habits. New habits equal health, and old habits can keep creating chronic problems. And that's part of also what the book is. I put a lot of systems together, and you see how the intimate relationship of each system is. And if you undercut one, you undercut all, so, every cell communicates. If I poke my finger, my whole body electrically knows what happened, and it goes into that healing mechanism, the whole body. There's no separation. So anyway, that's the big piece of why I wrote the book, to bring a lot of things that people can get confused by. Yeah, for sure. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to just talk to us. We'll go, everybody go check out superlife.com. Make sure you're following Darin on Facebook and any other social media outlets that you like, Instagram, Twitter, and everything. There's a lot of really valuable information that I've found, and on his blog as well. If you're interested in learning more about superfoods, this is really a fantastic resource, and somebody that I certainly don't hesitate to link to my clients. I have a couple of people that are kind of my go-to people, where if somebody's got a question that I can't answer, which is frequently the case, this is one of the first places I go looking for answers. And so, I just want to thank you. Anything else you want to sort of leave us with, or advice or anything? Oh man, that's a big one. I just, humbly, I'm really grateful to kind of step out to get to know you, Dave, more. I want to get to know the coaches more, and to put kind of my heart and soul into this book, and it's not to write a book, it's to move something forward, to gift someone, to everything that you become a coach for, really. And so I am grateful to do that, and to help as much as I can. So thank you for this time, and just connect up with me on social media at Super Life Living, social media stuff. And then this is all new to me too. So if I I'm like, oh my God, I get so overwhelmed with some of that social media stuff. For sure. Don't worry about it. We'll throw all the links in the description and everything, and make sure that everybody can, it makes it easy to find you. And I will load my stand-up board on top of my Westphalia and roll up there and come visit you sometime. Let's go. Let's go rip it, bro. Right on, man. Aloha. Thank you so much once again. Aloha. That's our call for tonight. And Darin, Olien, really appreciate your time. We'll be in touch, bro. Thank you. Thanks. Cheers.